There is a shift happening in the mechanics of global finance, and it arrived without a single press release, major headline, or policy paper. Instead, the evidence appeared quietly in April 2026, buried deep inside the balance sheets of the State Bank of Pakistan. Watch this liquidity event. The United Arab Emirates drains $3.5 billion from Pakistan's reserves. But as that capital vanished, Saudi Arabia refilled the gap. They injected $3 billion in fresh cash and locked in another $5 billion through 2028. Two close allies applied the exact same financial tool in the exact same week to the exact same country to broadcast completely opposite messages. For decades, Gulf sovereign deposits followed a very predictable logic. They served as basic balance of payment support to keep emerging market economies stable. This money operated as neutral capital. As long as the receiving country stayed loosely aligned with the Gulf states, those deposits renewed like clockwork, regardless of a nation's specific policy choices. The events in Islamabad last April proved that these deposits no longer renew by default. Pakistan's experience marks the first real-world test of a framework where sovereign balance sheets operate as active geopolitical battlefields. The trigger for this financial turbulence was actual warfare. During the recent conflict, the Emirates absorbed over 2,800 missiles and drone strikes. As the violence escalated around the Strait of Hormuz, Pakistan chose to remain strictly neutral, eventually helping broker the regional security framework currently under U.S. review. The sudden withdrawal of Emirati capital was a direct response to that neutrality. Driven by public frustration over Pakistan's refusal to fight, Abu Dhabi used its deposit to punish a perceived lack of military loyalty. Conversely, Riyadh rewarded that exact same neutrality. Their $8 billion commitment provided the financial cover for the 2025 Saudi-Pakistan Defense Agreement, a pact anchored by military leadership like Field Marshal Asim Munir. Pakistan only survived this financial tug-of-war because it had a massive infrastructural safety net. Projects like the Port of Gwadar, part of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, provided the economic stability needed to weather the sudden loss of capital. By refusing to enter the fray, Pakistan absorbed a multi-billion-dollar penalty in real time. Staying out of a regional war now carries an explicit, measurable price tag. Imagine your bank calling in your mortgage, demanding full repayment immediately, simply because you refused to take a side in a violent neighborhood dispute. Scale that mechanic up to the global level. Dozens of fragile emerging markets rely entirely on these exact types of Gulf deposits to keep their government solvent. If sovereign deposits carry conditional political weight, a hidden risk now sits inside foreign reserves worldwide, starting with the Central Bank of Egypt. This new risk threatens economies recovering from crisis, like Colombo, Sri Lanka, and it creates deep vulnerabilities for nations sitting directly on geopolitical fault lines, like Oman, Jordan. A single misstep at the United Nations, or a neutral stance in a regional proxy fight, can now trigger an immediate, devastating withdrawal of liquidity. The logic of global finance has mutated. The deposit itself is the geopolitical signal. The withdrawal of Emirati funds and the doubling down of Saudi capital functioned as direct votes, one penalizing a sovereign nation's foreign policy and the other endorsing it. Ultimately, Pakistan was paid twice. They were compensated for the actions they took and financially punished for the actions they refused to take. When you read headlines about routine foreign aid or central bank relief, look for the invisible strings of geopolitical control attached to the money. This framework will only revert if the global system returns to automatic rollovers, or if states like the UAE attempt to frame their asset withdrawals as purely commercial decisions. Until then, the definition of money has changed. Sovereign capital is no longer neutral. Make no mistake, a nation's foreign policy is now hard-coded directly into the gears of its central bank vault.